But, but anyhow, when we went back with this stuff and I started doing this stuff, and a lot of fundamentalist people became extremely upset with me and with what was going on here. And we had people suggesting that we were sacrificing animals here. People came and spray painted red paint on the front of this building. We had to have it sandblasted off, and they said, these are devils and Donahue is a Satan and all this kind of stuff. And what was really unfortunate about it was because none of them ever came here and asked, what are you talking about? And what I found so interesting about all of this was what goes on in this place and what has gone on in this place ever since we began working seriously at this, is that we have made sure that the teachings of Jesus Christ in the Bible are obeyed. That's all we've done. All we've done is look at the teachings of Jesus, who said, hey, seek first the kingdom and look within yourself for it. It doesn't come with observation, so you have to practice the single eye, take no thought, and cast your energy to the right side. And all of these things that we do, making Jesus Lord, make us enemies of the system up there, because they say all of these things are evil. So I've had such a time in all of these years struggling with the fact that what we're doing is exactly in obedience to what the Bible says. What we're doing is in obedience to what Jesus says, and yet we are not in obedience to the cult ethic of the system. And there's nothing in the Bible that says my salvation depends on believing their interpretation. That's ridiculous. So anyhow, we've gone on, and one thing led us into the other, and then we started, because we were true to this, and we were true to the instructions of Jesus in the Bible, we started to unveil different things. We started to see things. And we started, the program that goes on TV, the half-hour program, is called Hidden Meanings. And now we have the website, and that's called Hidden Meanings. And all of this stuff is Hidden Meanings. And then lo and behold, something happened years and years ago. Most of you remember it. I started talking to you about the pineal gland of the brain. And I said, well, the pineal gland of the brain secretes a hormone called melatonin. And melatonin, among other things, is a skin lightener. And so this documents what Jesus said about if your eye be single, your body will fill with light. We're able to prove that scientifically. And that we were the first, nobody else knew or even commented about that. And then suddenly, as you started leaving the church and driving in your cars and going to the shopping centers, you started seeing in the front of store windows, come in and get your melatonin. Melatonin for what's going on? All of a sudden it became the rage to buy this stuff, see? And so, but you said, well, you realized then that we were having some credibility, we were then privy to looking at the Bible and beginning to understand the things. We saw great psychological truths in here. In addition to that, we found about the discoveries of the planets, the astronomers who were discovering the 8 planets, which have just culminated in the discovery of Corona. All of these amazing things that we were able to document as there was an intelligent writing somewhere and speaking to us now. Even preluding what's going to happen with the supernova. And now what has happened is a gentleman whose book is about to become a bestseller, whose book is about to be bought, or it actually has been bought by Warner Brothers to be made into a movie, and it's called the Coded Bible, and it talks about hidden meanings in the Bible. And Oprah Winfrey's doing a program about it, and all these people are, all of a sudden the whole world is finding out that what you've known for years, that the Bible was indeed written by an intelligent civilization that is 6,000 years ahead of where we're at, and that's coded. All of the amazing things in here. Now they're finding in this coded part of this book that's been written about Bill Clinton's election and about the assassination of President Rabin by using numerical codes. They're finding this. And you say, well, I don't know if I believe it. But think about this for a minute. Let me show you a few things. It shouldn't be a surprise for you to understand that the Bible is written in a code. What it should be for you now is a great sense of exhilaration to think, hey, what we've been struggling and understanding for all of these years down in the basement of that place is being documented and confirmed by others all over. It's not my job to write, if I was supposed to write a bestseller, I don't work for this system. Now, just listen to me carefully, and I'm not trying to be patronizing to you. I do not work for this system. Okay? If I was to make a lot of money or get notoriety, I would be cut off. My connection is not with this group, it's with another group. And let's let it go with that. All right? The people that I work with are not these. All right? Just understand what I'm trying to say. And so what I have to do is build a group of people, and that was fun. I knew what my assignment was, but it was very frustrating to me. How in the world could I get this message out to the world and yet not get myself out to the world? You know, without a book, you know, build on and all this, how could it possible? I couldn't figure this out. And that's why I'm so excited about this website, because this website is getting all of this information out and nobody's name is on it. Nobody's name is on it. And so now we're able to do this. And, you know, you say, well, it's 700 people. But it's only been a couple weeks. And I know it's going to be in the tens of thousands. I anticipate it'll be in the hundreds of thousands that will see this, you know. So it's a very exciting time. But when I think about the things that you and I have shared together, and then I look at this guy who's got a bestseller about the hidden meanings in the Bible, I'm very excited about that. Because I know it's true. If the people who I know wrote this, then of course they would have written these things that he's found numerically. Let me give you an example of what I'm talking about. Go to page 2 of the Bible. Do this with me. I know it's a little Bible roulette, you know, but I mean it's not too much of a strain on you to turn a page. Okay? That's all I'm asking you to do is turn pages. But if you go to page 2 of the Bible and you look at Genesis 2, all right? And if you look at Genesis 2, and it says in Genesis 2, verse 22, all right? It says, and the rib which the Lord God had taken from man, he made a woman, all right? Now, that's silly. You know that's silly. But what is being discussed there is not taking a rib from Adam. Watch me. It's talking about taking an electron. Can you see this? And talking about taking an electron from atom. What you're reading there is nuclear fission. When you remove an electron from atom, you cause a chain reaction of self-replication, of creation. What you're reading there in that Bible that you have in your hand is a scientific fact that all life began with the splitting of the atom. Do you see that? That's what it's there for. You don't take a rib out of a guy and make a lady. That's silly. You know you don't do that. But you do take an electron from atom, and when you take that electron from atom, it starts a chain reaction. It starts to duplicate itself. It creates itself. And you have a replication. It's called fission, and that's what the Bible's saying. So nuclear fission, a splitting of the atom, is the source of all life. And that's fine. And you could deal with that. That makes sense. But you say you heard it here. Now, the point is this. If this guy's got a bestseller saying, look, they knew about Bill Clinton. They knew about Rabin. They knew about General Schwarzkopf. They knew about this war. They knew about this. But they also knew about splitting the atom. Say. Because that's 6,000 years ago that this was written. Now, let me show you something else. Yes. See, there's my first call. Let me tell you something else. If your eye be single, your body will fill with light. You have a gland in the middle of your brain called the pineal gland. The pineal gland receives serotonin, which is made into melatonin and so forth and so on. But the pineal gland opens in the dark. It's receptive to light. Then it opens in the dark. And it's one of the master glands in the body. And they're finding out from all of the hospitals and medical centers of all the wonders that melatonin does, which they're going to find out more. But it's the sense of the pineal gland of the brain is the single eye, the third eye, the seat of the soul. Go to page 28 of the Bible. And look at Genesis chapter 32. In Genesis chapter 32, a guy named Jacob who never lived, who never even existed. These people didn't exist. How do I know these people didn't exist? Because if these people existed, what was CNN there writing all this stuff down? No, of course not. They didn't have any newspapers. These guys are running around in the desert and everybody. So what did he say? Genesis chapter 32. And look at verse 30. I have seen God face to face, and I shall call the name of the place Peniel. That's the pineal gland of the brain, where you see God face to face. And it was written into the Bible by the same people that the fellow said he's finding about Bill Clinton, and I wonder if Paula Jones is. I mean, my name is liable to be. I mean, who knows, you know, whose names are written. Okay, now, let's take a look at this. You ready for this? Here's the tribe of Judah. The tribe of Judah is positioned in the east at the point of the rising sun. Okay? And they're called the children of light. That's what they're called, the children of light. Now let me show you. You tell me if an intelligence was writing in this Bible. If there's a coded message in this Bible. You've just seen two of them. You've seen nuclear fission and you've seen the pineal gland. Take a look at this, page 115. Look at the book of Numbers on page 115 and look at Numbers chapter 2. And in Numbers chapter 2, look at verse 9. And look at the number of people in the camp of Judah. You've got 100,000. You know how to write 100,000 like that? Okay? There's 100,000. No problem. And you got 80,000. A score is 20. A score is 20. You can't say. Okay, a score is 20. So your 4 score is 4 times 20. That's 80. Okay? Okay. 4 score. And 6,000. There's 6,000. And 400. Okay. No problem. 186.4. That's the constant speed of light. For the children of light. Who wrote that? See? I'm talking about 6,000 years ago. 5,000, 4,000 years ago, somebody knew the speed of light and wrote it in your Bible. Somebody knew about nuclear fission and wrote it in the Bible. Somebody knew about the pineal gland of your brain and wrote it in the Bible. 5,000 years. Who wrote it? See, like Joni Schultz put a thing in the on the website because they're having a review of this new book about the Bible Code Revealed. And she wrote in there from Joan Schultz, thank God that God is getting so much attention lately. I wish everyone could read this book and beat their way past those mental blocks that contribute to the skeptic in all of us. But not all Bible codes need a computer to figure out. Though the speed of light is in the Old Testament as well as detailed description of the human brain. Check out www.hiddenmeanings.com for an enlightening, you know. Well, that's great. See? But what she said is true. You don't need, in order to be with these people like this book, you have to be a scientist in order to how they did this. But you don't have to be any nuclear scientist to look at this. You just did. So what have we seen so far? We've seen nuclear fission. We've seen the pineal gland of the brain. You've seen the speed of light. Now, let me show you this one. What about your head? Your brain. And everybody's brain is the same. Within reason. But I mean, your head is basically the same. But let me show you how your brain is. Look, okay? Okay? The outer covering of your brain is called dura mater, which means hard mother. In the most inner sensitive place of your brain, it's called pia mater, which is tender mother. Pia mater is separated from dura mater by arachnoid, which is the web or the veil. Okay? Now that's the way your brain is, and that's what you find in Stedman's Medical Dictionary, Gray's Anatomy. Everybody has that. Everybody sitting in this room, everybody on television, everybody in the world has a brain with dura mater, the hard outside, pia mater, the tender inside, and the two are separated by the veil, which is arachnoid. Now, when you look in the Bible, it says God dwells in a temple not made with hands. Take your finger. Make sure it's this one. There you go. Take your finger. All right. Place it over here. Come on. You know what that's called? The temple. And you know what? It's not made with hands. Oh, could it be my head? Let's see. Go to page 70 in the Bible and look at the book of Exodus. And in page 70 of the Bible, on the book of Exodus, I want you to look at Exodus chapter 26, verse 33. Here's a construction of the temple. And it says in verse 33, "And you shall hang up the veil," well, we got a veil, "that you may bring within the veil the ark, and the veil shall divide you between the holy place, Pia Mater, Dura Mater, and the most holy place, Pia Mater." In other words, the temple was made according to a pattern which is a holy place, Dura Mater, a most holy place, Pia Mater, and a veil between the two, which is arachnoid. The construction of the temple is a duplicate of the construction of the human brain. So who knew that? Who understood that? See? And it was made according to a pattern. So now you have the temple made, the brain made as a temple. You have the pineal gland. You have nuclear fission. You have splitting the atom. You have the speed of light. And people are looking for hidden meanings. They're all over the place. They're all over the place. Huh? Now, what about UFO and extraterrestrial? Now, first of all, folks, be a little respectful about our friends. They are not extraterrestrials. Okay? They're just people who live in a different neighborhood. They just live a little further away, you know, but they're people just like you. Much smarter, only because their Aquarius happened thousands of years ago. And so they evolved. You know, you're approaching kindergarten, and they're getting their advanced degrees in science at another place. Okay? So don't worry about that. In fact, basically, compared to them, we're like Neanderthal. But let me show you. You know, UGG is about where, you know, this is the amazing, UGG. Oh, we have computers. I mean, come on. You know, they had computers millions of years ago, these people. So, I mean, you found a computer 20 years ago. Yeah, do you realize that your ancestors 7,500 years ago were writing with quill pens and had gas? I lived in a house. I'm not going to say how old I am, but I lived in a house. This is true. Well, they had a little thing sticking out, and you turned it on, and the gas came out, and then you lit, and either the house blew up or the light went on, one or the other. But they had these. That's what they had. They had gas lamps. Okay, but let me show you something. Let's go to page 319, and on page 319 of the Bible we're going to look at 2 Kings chapter 2. 2 Kings chapter 2. And in 2 Kings chapter 2, if you look in verse 11, "And it came to pass as there's a guy named Elijah, went on and talked, behold, there appeared a chariot of fire and horses of fire, and parted them both asunder. And Elijah went up by a whirlwind into heaven, and Elisha saw it, and he cried, and he cried, and he also did all of this stuff. And he watched this guy fly out of sight into space. So here's a guy named Elijah who gets in a fiery chariot and takes off, and the other guy's standing there. What is this? You know, the other guy said, "This is great. I think I'll put it in the Bible." You know, this would be a great story. Well, how am I going to explain it? Well, I'm going to fiery chariot. So Elijah goes up, but this is the interesting part. This guy is what you call an alien. You know why? Because he went up in a fiery chariot, and then in the New Testament, Jesus turns around and he says, excuse me, fellas, see that guy sitting over there? That's John the Baptist. No, that's Elijah. If you've got ears. Listen. He's back. So here's a guy that went up in a UFO and came back to Earth. He's back. And it says so in the Bible. I didn't make this up. And if they don't want me to talk about this stuff in the Bible, they shouldn't put it in there. But they did. And it's what's in the Bible. So Elijah went up, and here's the interesting point. Who is this guy? Because you'll meet him. Eventually, you'll meet the same guy. Okay? And you'll say, I can tell you all about you, you rascal. You know? I know where you went. I know all about you. In the Bible, his name is Elijah the Tishbite. Okay? Tishbite. And the word Elijah means stranger, and the word Tishbite means high country. He's a stranger from the high country, for sure. Okay? Okay. So there we sit. We've had an experience with nuclear fission, the pineal gland, the speed of light, the anatomically correct construction of the human brain, UFOs and extraterrestrials, and people are looking for hidden meanings in the Bible. And as Joni said, you don't have to be a computer or a numerologist in order to find them, because they're there. Now this is the place where, and this is the point where your friends who are in the fundamentalist movement make a and of course we just touched the surface now, you understand that. Because now you and I have gone deep into understanding your brain as a computer and the electrical circuitry of the brain and the current that flows into the circuit, which passes through resistors called chakras, and the law of resistance, which is Ohm, which then inhibits the current and allows the brain and the circuitry to function as it should. Only thing that I have told people, the only thing that I have taught people here is how to handle yourself. How to work the brain that you have in your head. How to make it work for you. It's a simple thing. Doesn't cost you any money. Don't have to go anywhere. Don't have to join anything. Simply to sit in a dark room, do an Om, allow this energy to rise, know what you're doing, and then once you know what you're doing and you know how to operate it, you are trusted with these friends who will then appear to you, and a guy, I've even told you his name, will stand there in front of you and ask you for your credentials, and his name is Samahel, and you'll meet him. And yet so many people have a difficult time with this. But what when you think of what's your alternative? Your alternative is to join one of their groups, and hope. And their whole philosophy is not this earth. It's not the peace. It's not the healing. It's their whole philosophy is to think, well, I'm going to do this because I want everything to be nice after I die. Nothing is nice after you die. This is what we talked about last week. The human mind is energy. It is energy. Consciousness is energy. They've sentenced Timothy McVeigh to death. But what they're going to do, if they do it, is they're going to kill his body. You can't kill energy. And the energy that's inside of that man will then seek another host. And it cannot find one because you are all taking these bodies. So it'll find a fetus that is non-occupied. It'll enter into a fetus. Another mother will give birth to a Timothy. And he'll be raised, and he'll go to a nice school and do all the wonderful things. And he'll be in the military, and he'll get all of his credentials. But in the basement of his mind, there'll be a locked room. And he'll be back. And another truck or another incident will pull into another place, and the same thing will happen again. Huh? Who's the guy in Florida that they killed, the Ted Bundy? Did we straighten him out? Did they break him? Did they purge him? No, they killed his body. Ted Bundy's mind, his energy, sought another body. It's probably already entered into another body. And they'll be in a church somewhere, and the minister or the priest will be there, and we're going to christen Ted. You're calling him Ted. But you know what you've done? You didn't sentence Ted to death. You sentenced more women to death someplace else, because Ted will be back. Because you can't kill that energy. And if you can go into quantum physics, you can find out that mind and brain are two different things. And they're not connected to one another. When the computer dies, the operator doesn't die with it. And if the operator is using the computer for evil purposes, when his computer dies, he goes and finds another computer. And as it says in the Bible, according to Jesus, when that evil spirit leaves, it'll walk through dry ground, but then it'll come back and it'll bring 7 more with it. And the condition when it comes back is going to be 7 times worse than it was. So you haven't sentenced Ted Bundy, you haven't sentenced any of these people to death. You've sentenced other people to death because you have set these people back into the spirit world to find another body in which they will bring back the same harm. I don't know whether it is. Maybe they had to have work from a doctor. Maybe they had a mental problem. Maybe they had a brain problem. Whatever it was. Maybe they had to be broken. But nobody bothered. They just said, well, give them a needle. What punishment is that? If we have dogs and cats that we love dearly, when they're in pain, we give them a needle, put them to sleep. And everybody wakes up. Everybody wakes up. And when you have something like that that you're not sure of, and everybody say, well, I don't know if that's true. No, I don't know if you don't know if it's, but you don't know if it's not either. And when you have something as serious as that, you better stay and you better hold and you better work with these people and see if you can make a change. I don't even care. Hey, if you want, if you can break them and if you can break their whole philosophy and their whole, this thing. How come a Carl Jung knew this 100 years ago or 75 or 50 years ago? Carl Jung knew this. Carl Jung knew that what can go into the subconscious, this evil that can go into the subconscious, all it needs, Carl Jung said, is something to stimulate it. And then when it stimulates, the door in the basement breaks open and it comes out and you've got it again. He knew it. But see, Carl Jung was not, the politicians of today who do things not because it's right, they do things because it's politically advantageous to do things. And that's why we have set, and we bring these people back time after time upon us. There's always, there was the Boston Strangler, there was the Jack the Ripper. These people have always existed, and they always come back because we've never understood how to handle the mind and how to deal with things like that. And so we just dispatch them back into the netherworld. And then someday you'll come back and you'll be working in a building in another life, and a guy will pull up with a Ryder truck. And somebody will say, hey, Tim! Certainly it happens. You can't chase evil away. You've got to destroy it. And you can't destroy it by eliminating a part of it. Anyhow, so when we start to understand these things, when we start to look at a Bible, do what it says. If you want to use it, do what it says. Or throw it away. And I say this to the fundamentalist Christian. If you want to use it, understand it. And if you want to take it literally, understand that you're violating it. Go to page 502. And page 502, the book of Psalms, and God, whatever you want to call it, it makes it very clear what these words are. It says in Psalm 78, verse 2, I will open my mouth in a parable. I will utter dark sayings of old, which we have heard and known and our fathers have told us. This is the book of Psalms. This is written 4,000 years ago. And I will open my mouth in a parable. I will utter dark sayings of old, which our fathers have told us, and this is written 4,000 years ago. Dark sayings. You know what dark sayings are? Hidden meanings. You know what our program is called? Hidden meanings. You know what they're discussing all over the world now? Hidden meanings. But what's the big surprise? It says in the Bible, doesn't it? Go to page 541. And at page 541, you look in the book of Proverbs. And in the book of Proverbs, in Proverbs chapter 1 and verse 6, well, in verse 2 it says to know wisdom. And then in verse 6 it says to understand a proverb, the interpretation, the words of the wise, and their dark sayings, hidden meanings. Hidden meanings. What about the Old Testament that you've read about a guy taking 2 of every animal in a boat with no windows in it and sailing for 40 days with elephants going to the bathroom, and that's fine, no air conditioner? Who's cleaning this thing up? No, I believe that. That sounds all right to me. Glory to God. Or 2 nudists in a garden, and they don't have any pants on, and so they're told they don't have any pants on by a talking snake. Got to send Gerard to Sunday school. I don't want my son to miss Sunday school. What? You send him to a lunatic asylum? These people are crazy. Do you know that snakes don't talk? Do you know that you can't take 2 of every kind of animal going to the bathroom in a boat with no windows in it for 40 days? You can't do that? Does that make any sense to you? You can't do that. That's nothing. That's nothing. Oh, wait a minute. Let's get this one. You ready for this one? I take everything. I believe everything is the Word of God. Look at this one. Here's a guy swimming in the ocean and a fish swallows him and he lives in the fish's intestines for 3 days. What's he doing in there? The fish pukes, out comes an evangelist and he's got seaweed and stuck in his teeth and he says, repent. What? This is the foundation of your culture. You wonder why the kids are taking drugs. Why not? Look what their parents are teaching them. You know? God almighty. Now, understand, when you talk about the Old Testament, look at page 953. And on page 953, you want to get that mic ready? Yeah, you want to take the mic and page 953, you can bring it out to Joe now when you get Galatians chapter 4. The Apostle Paul talks about the Old Testament. And in verse 24, he makes it very clear. He says, which things are an allegory. Do you know what an allegory is? An allegory is a story that looks like a real story, but it's not. It has all hidden meanings in it. It's telling you secrets about things. It's like myth. It's an allegory. And it says right there, see, which things are an allegory. And let's wrap it up with this last one. Look at page 944. And on page 944, in the book of 2 Corinthians, in 2 Corinthians chapter 3, look at verse 6. Who has made us able ministers of the New Testament, not of the letter, but of the Spirit, for the letter kills. Do you know how you know the letter kills? Let me give you 3 names that you should know. Jim Jones, David Koresh, Marshall Applewhite. Not one of them was a New Age guy. Not one of them was teaching Eastern philosophies. Jim Jones was an evangelist. David Koresh was a Bible teacher in the book of Revelation. And Marshall Applewhite was a minister. All 3 of them were born-again Christians, completely whacked out, and because they were taking this stuff literally. And that's the problem where in a lot of churches they're teaching this stuff literally in violation of the Bible precepts. They're teaching this stuff literally and sending demented people off to try to duplicate these things. David Koresh was trying to get through the 6th seal and talking about fire coming down. And I had a person last night in New York ask that question. First of all, the person said, what about baptism? Well, baptism and fire go hand in hand, okay? And this is where Koresh made such a terrible mistake, and the whole place went off in fire, because as most Christians are taught, Armageddon, fire is going to come down on the earth, and that's not what it means. Will you please understand something? The New Testament, where all this stuff is written, is Greek. The whole thing is Greek. Even Jesus, the Jewish Messiah, is Greek. He's got a Greek name. What's a Jewish guy running around Palestine with a Greek name for when he's got Jewish parents? I mean, nobody questions it. It's Greek. It's myth. In Greek, there are 5 stages of consciousness. The first stage is earth. The second stage is water. The third stage is air. The 4th stage is fire. And the 5th stage is the renewed mind. Okay? When you have baptism, baptism does not mean that you take your real head into real water. The only thing that happens when you put your real head in real water is your head gets wet. Do you think, is there a God somewhere that has a fetish about people with wet heads? Oh, that turns me on. When Nita gets her head wet, oh, she's saved. What is so stupid with this? This guy gets turned on by people with wet heads. Come on. But what is he really talking about? When you take your head, which is the earth, into the 2nd stage of consciousness by meditation, you have arrived at water. When you've reduced your brain cycles down from 30, which is beta, down between 14 and 30, which is alpha, you're going into water. Then you rise out of the water up into the air. You separate from the thoughts of the mind, and you start reducing your brain cycles down to the area of theta, which is between 8 and 14. And then you rise from air into fire, where you go into anywhere between 4 and 8. So delta is fire, where that is the baptism of fire. That's the baptism of the Holy Spirit. It's delta. Are you ready? Shall we do it again? You go into meditation. Delta is ready when you are. I don't think you got that. What's the matter with you people? Delta is ready with you. I thought that was clever as could be. Anyhow, but that's what this is about. That's what baptism is. Now, what is fire coming down on the earth? Look at it. It's the fourth stage of consciousness. When your meditation takes you up to that point of, say, between 4 and 8 cycles in your brain waves, you get to the point of fire. The fire then opens up wisdom to you, which crushes down on all of the hurt, all of the guilt, all of the fear, and all of the things. So going into, Armageddon is the fire which comes down from the fourth stage of consciousness to hurt all the things that have been hurting you. That's what it is. It is not some God up there saying, well, I think I love these people so much I'm going to start a nuclear holocaust and we'll wipe it down on the earth. What is this? But, people write books in the late, great planet Earth. That's exactly what they write. But they don't understand the Greek, they don't understand Greek myth, that they're talking about the fourth stage of consciousness. In the same way, baptism is simply taking yourself into the water, which is the second stage, and then moving upward into the air and into the fire, and that's what baptism is. So we understand the symbols of these things, and then we're brought to the point where we can understand the rest of it. So all these things point us to a document that is a coded message put together by an advanced civilization who knew of things that only someone who was 6,000 years advanced would have known. Nobody could have written this in an Egyptian desert 4,000 years ago unless they knew the speed of light, unless they knew of nuclear fission, unless they knew of the anatomical construction of the human brain. I'll tell you something else. The Egyptians never laid a hand on the pyramids, okay? No Egyptian in the world ever built a pyramid. These things were 10,000 years before there ever was even such a thing as Egyptians. These are anatomically correct structures that are precision built in line with the constellation Orion, which is simply a demonstration. The king's chamber is the thalamus of your brain. The queen's chamber is the hypothalamus of your brain. And when you orient yourself in meditation, you align that with Orion to open up the angle of light, which you in religion calls angels of light, which gives you then understanding. Okay, what we're going to do now is we're going to open up we're going to turn the lights on, and we're going to open up to any comments, any thoughts that you have. Please, when the microphone comes to you, you don't have to do anything, Joan. The microphone will be controlled from there. All you've got to do is bring it to the person. When the microphone comes to you, look into the camera and just give your first name. And when you give your first name, and then, it doesn't have to be a question. It can be a question. It doesn't have to be. And but you might just want to make a comment. And so now stand up. Can you get her? Make sure you get everybody in the picture because I want everybody to see. Would you look over the camera and just give your first name?
My name is Penny.
Okay.
And I am questioning, when an evil energy dies, why isn't there healing of that energy in, and maybe this is my old Catholic background, why, doesn't something happen of an enlightened nature? And number two, if there is someone who is evil in your life who is intent on doing harm to you, how do you handle that?
Okay. Well, the first part of the question is you're really looking for an intervention on behalf from a divine source to do something with this evil. I understand that. I understand. Healing Timothy McVeigh, healing Ted Bundy, and so forth. The problem that we have here, and I think we've learned this pretty much from our experiences on this earth, is that healing is basically a job of those who you live with. Doctors heal, dentists heal, science heals, and so forth. That healing is done in a way based on the evolution of our minds into science. Nowadays, we're able to do pretty good with a lot of diseases that people died from years ago. The people who were not healed 100 years ago are healed now because we've evolved to the point where we can do that. The question of God or creation or science simply allows us to evolve to a point where we learn how to do these healings and we learn how to make people well. In the case of a McVeigh or a case of a Ted Bundy or something like that, the healing in the same way has to come from us. It has to come from those who are enlightened. And the person has to be I totally believe the person has to be broken. The person, we have to spend time with a person like that. We have to spend time to find out what is the evil, where is it, why did this thing happen. Maybe it's a defective brain. Maybe there's a defective brain organ or something that a doctor could find. Or an MRI might be able to find something defective. If not defective, it is up to us then to start to apply what this book and what the Krishniks and the Buddhists have told us we must do in order to heal. We cannot any longer expect a God or a universe to heal these types of things. Because let me tell you something. And let's think about this, because it's an excellent question. Why did he do that? Why did McVeigh do that? Well, as far as we know, he became outraged over what the government did to the children in David Koresh's commune. Koresh was a lunatic fundamentalist who had people in this commune, and he was doing all evil things because he was taught this stuff literally by a religious organization. One evil there. Then you have the government who's blasting in through the side doors and killing men, women, and children with all of this kind of stuff, obviously not doing this. So there's all kinds of evils that were created. So you cannot say, let me heal Timothy without healing first the Koresh thing and what caused that to happen and the government thing and what caused that to happen. So it gets to be a very complex thing of a universal need to change the whole mindset. And that's what I believe is happening in this age that we're living in. But it's not that easy. It's not anything that occurs as religion has taught us, reach up and God will heal you. No, the only thing like God teaches in the Bible is I'm not going to give you a fish, I'm going to teach you how to fish. I'm not going to say, hey, look, here, I'm going to give you something to eat. I'm going to show you how to find something to eat. Because this is exactly what we've done in religion. We've said to people, say these words and you'll get saved. But Jesus says, no, I don't want you doing that. I want you not to receive salvation, I want you to receive compassion. So I think the question is very, very good, and it's something we have to discuss more and more and more and think about more and more and more because it raises a lot of complex issues. If it was just Timothy McVeigh or if it was just Ted Bundy, you could say, yes, heal it. But you're not healing it by healing Timothy McVeigh or Ted Bundy because they got it from someplace else. So you got to track back the source, and it's the system, it's the society, it's the religions that got into the minds of these people that caused this thing to grow. A very interesting thing I would suggest is a little paperback book, I can't remember the name of it, written by Carl Jung, and he talks about the mind and just how society implants ideas into the head of a child, and this child then, these ideas go deep into the subconscious and they grow with this child, and then something is triggered. So you have to go right back to the training, to the family. We're finally waking up to these things. But it's not just easy where you can heal somebody from this, because you can't. It'll just go to somebody else. What else? But it's good. And it's something we ought to continue thinking about and working with. Anybody else? Yes. Just if you would stand up for just a moment, and if you'd give your name, your first name.
My name is Loring, L-O-R-I-N-G.
Yes, sir.
My question is, what is the goal of this group?
Okay, very good question. And the first goal of the group is to get rid of all goals. That is the goal. And I'm not being facetious about it. Is to get rid of all goals. Is to allow each person, each individual, to arrive at this point where God would have them on their own time schedule, on their own time frame. But if you want to take basically what my overall goal would be for the entire thing, is to get people to be able to understand their relationship with nature, their relationship with their own body, their relationship with the communities of the earth and the universe, and start to build people who will be able to go out and help people heal, help the societies heal, help the systems heal, stop the bombing, stop the rapings, stop the degrading of women, stop the separation of people, to bring people to a point where they can start to think. One of the prime goals that I had when I set this up was, first of all, stay away from any kind of organization where people could say it was a cult, so we don't have any members. To allow each person the luxury of being able to say, I'm where I'm at and I'm right where I should be. Not where Bill is or where somebody else may be. I'm right where I should be. That's a wonderful thing. That's a great goal. allowing each person to individuate. Once again, if I could go back to Carl Jung, and Carl Jung talked about one of the real disasters in the world is the lack of individuation. Everybody is trying to be like the group. And then you go into like, and I'm sorry, but you go into Christian circles and some people, well, he's a baby Christian. What does that mean? I mean, he's not up like the group has. Or are you doing this or are you doing that because the group does it? Each individual is so special, and each individual has a place to reach within themselves that is cut out exactly on their own time schedule. So my goal, let me answer this, my goal is to give each individual the freedom to find themselves and their place with God on their own timetable and on God's timetable with them, without the interference of any groups or organizations or cults of any kind. Individuation, I guess, would be the prime goal. But I would hope that each person here has no goal, that each person will just react to the circumstances and build on them and learn through the teachings as to just what they can do to respond to needs and respond to healings and so forth and so on based on how they feel within themselves. Okay?
Bill, how about the aspect of meditation, too?
What do you mean?
In bringing that person into a oneness.
Well, you know, when you talk about meditation, and if Loring says, what is the goal? The goal is, another goal is to get people to understand that they have a mind that is neglected. You take care of your foot if it hurts. You take care of your teeth if they hurt. You go to a doctor if you can't see. You go to a barber to get your hair cut, and you leave your mind vegetate. You know, what do I do with it? And the key to the whole thing that's taught by Krishna, Buddha, Jesus, is that the mind responds to meditation. And the mind has to be allowed to cool down through the resistance of Om so that it can function and can receive that which is instructions from higher domains as well as lower. So we've neglected the mind. So that would be another good goal, is that to get people into meditation to start paying attention to themselves and to start, you know, making sure that within themselves they begin to grow and mature. But mainly I'm looking for each one. And I have a secret goal. I want each one of you, and before I leave here and go where I have to go, I want each one of you to meet Sam. Samahel. He's a tough guy. But he's a nice guy. But he's a tough guy. And that's what his job is. And he'll look right at you and he says, what the heck are you doing here? What do you know? What's it look like?
The symbol of the 8, you know, the cross with the X over the
What's the number?
4555.
What's the word?
Zozio.
You know what a Zozio means?
I sure do.
What's it mean?
Crystallized light, light filtering. Thank you. That's such a treasure. And you know what hurts me more than anything is so many people who have come here who don't anymore, and who are going to miss it. Who are going to miss it. And then when you read all of these things, and I say to Joan sometimes, if they'll only read in the paper what the scientists are finding. You know who's all excited about the second coming now? Scientists. They don't call it the second coming, but they know something's happening. And they're all excited about it. And they're seeing it. The Jeffrey Marcys of the world, the Paul Butlers of the world, and the Didier Queluz from Switzerland who found these. They're all excited about what's going on, what they're finding. And now they found the ninth, and now this great supernova that's coming down on the earth. And so many people who at one time started here. I guess it's because this place doesn't say there's a God who's going to do everything for you. It says the God that's here wants you to learn, do it for yourself. Become one and really straighten this place out. Wonderful things are happening. I don't know what more you could have with the discoveries that are being made in science, the discoveries that are being made in astronomy, and the magnificent things that you're seeing about, you know, the Bible and all of this stuff coming out. Everything that we've said. And you know what's another thing, too? When these people come here, everything that you've seen in this place, not one thing contradicts the Bible. Not one thing contradicts the Word of Jesus. Everything that we've done in here supports the Word and obeys the Word. And everything that we've done in here, everything that's been said in here is scientifically documented, and every shred of it you've received documentation in writing And the documentation is not from any New Age books. The documentation is from the most prestigious medical and scientific and educational journals in the world. And your testimonies did not come from Sister Doodad who had her toe healed. Your documentation that you have in your possession comes from Montefiore Medical Center, the medical centers at Seville, the medical centers at Andreopolis in Greece, all that talking about the pineal gland and meditation and how it heals and how it works with different diseases. Every bit of it. I can't do any more than that. I cannot do any more than that. I have given you scientific proof. And people who have chosen not to come have just chosen to turn against themselves. But that's not my problem. That's not my business. And, you know, there are people who are not ready for that first liftoff. And they won't be here. That's okay. And Jesus talks about that. One will be taken, the other will be left. But he doesn't mean you're going to be left and you're going to go to hell. It just means you're not ready for the first shift. It's okay. There'll be others. They'll come along. Everybody will get it sooner or later. But, I mean, I don't know how much more you can do than document everything and make it so simple as to how to reach it. Is there anything else? Anybody else?
Yeah, I have one.
You already had one. You can't have two questions.
You were supposed to cover this some time ago. Like when somebody feels that they're doing everything right and they fall upon tough times, and then they wonder, like, okay, falling back maybe to their born-again Christian days, like, what am I doing wrong now that this is occurring to me? And they put it into, like themselves, that there's something wrong with themselves.
Mm-hmm. Well, basically, that all comes from training. And it's let me show you the word. And religion thrives on this because it's necessary. And this is the word. Guilt. And without that word, you don't need. These religious institutions can't survive without that. And this word is the most destructive thing in the world as far as people's minds are concerned. When an individual has been set upon by bad times, if you sit down and go through, there's a psychological test that I took once with a fellow who teaches at our job, and it's called the why question. And every question you ask why, and you'll always bring it back to a center, the origin of the things that hurt people. And you'll always find that initially something was implanted into you from someplace else. Someplace else. And then you look back to that person, and you don't want to put that person on a guilt, but you'll find something was implanted into them from someplace else. Bad things do not happen to people because you draw them. That's silly. It is just absolute silliness. People don't attract things to themselves like that. This is look, if let's say you're perfectly pure and you're wholesome and you do everything right and you have a Bible and the Word of God and you go to church and all of these things are wonderful, but you just happen to live on the shooting gallery at Fort Dix. Now, you're a wonderful person and you're surrounding yourself with peace and tranquility, but every time you come out of your house, bullets are whizzing past your head. You're not shooting them, other people are. But you better dodge them, and you better not stay out there too long, because they'll hurt you. See? You're not drawing anything. You're just an advanced, evolutionized person in the middle of an archaic, Neanderthalic, middle-age mess. You're healed? Fine. But you're surrounded by thousands, millions who are not. And you're going to get hurt by that. So what do? You have to stay within yourself as much as you can. You have to rid yourself of all feelings of guilt for any of this stuff and realize, first of all, you live in a society, you live in a system, you are put down with religions which are loaded with all of the horrors that anybody could think of, and they've all become part of your makeup and my makeup. We've lived through that. I've told you about my life, and I'm sure your lives are just as crazy as mine were as a child. I didn't ask for all that. I didn't want to, as a little child, see knives flying and people blood and banisters breaking and cops fighting with people in the living room and dragging people off. I didn't want to see that, but I did, and it had an impression on me. See?
And all of this evil around me. And so now we get to a point where we realize, I still get these things when, you create, your beliefs create your own reality. Let me tell you something. I'll say this again. If you're going onto a picnic and you're driving your car and you believe you're going to have a wonderful day, and I'm claiming this day, and I'm claiming that I'm going to have a nice picnic and I'm going to enjoy the family. But there's a guy coming down the other street who believes he can make that red light. His belief is going to create a hell of a reality for you that is not going to be nice. So your beliefs are not created. Your reality can be created by somebody else's beliefs. If this guy, you're going down the street, and there's a guy across the street thinks he can grab your pocketbook and get away with it, his beliefs are going to create a reality for you. So you are subjected to the chaos that goes on around us. And what is the answer to this? I guess what Loring and some of them be talking about. We are awaiting now the pineal, the single eye of God, the supernova to engulf the world. And at this point is where a tremendous change in consciousnesses, a tremendous falling away from the systems and the groups of the world, and a tremendous elimination of all of this guilt. You're finding it, see, but you still got to live amongst those who haven't. And so then when bad things happen, you think, I'm drawing this to me. You're just surrounded by it. You know how Buddha put it, and I will conclude with this. Buddha said a lot of people get into meditation, and you start thinking about, why are these things happening? This is terrible. I'm doing all this meditation, and things are worse. You know what Buddha said? No, things aren't worse. You've just regained your sense of smell. Before, you were living in the cesspool and you never even realized it. Everything was normal. The crap was all over the place and you felt, well, it's the way it is. Now, you're getting purged. And you're regaining your sense of smell, and all of a sudden you're finding all around you is a septic tank. And you're living right in the middle of it. And so, Loring said, what is the goal? I guess maybe we could set this then as a goal to first of all free one another here from this lingering feelings of guilt and this feelings of being magnets for all this stuff, and just realize, if we could, that it wasn't us who created the environment that has all of the violence against the peoples, the subjugation of the downtrodden. Look, I mean, just look at yourself. Everybody's. I'm sorry, going so, but everybody's got a nice. You all dress nice. You all look like you had something to eat. Just go a few miles on this earth into a place and you see these little kids in there living under cardboards and they're filthy and there's flies crawling up. What kind of evil is that? That's the evil. What did they draw on them? What did they do? What did a little pussy cat who gets, abused by, what did that cat do to draw this? Did the cat do something evil to draw this evil on? Of course not. The children who are abused, the women who are degraded, what did they do to draw this onto them? Nothing. It is there. So you're not guilty. And that's the first thing you got to understand, is that the Jesus, the Christ, the Christian lives inside of you. And you find that and you dwell in that. And you are on the eve. You have gone through the 9 planets. You are awaiting the pineal of God to consume the earth. And Samael knows each one of you by your name. You're in good shape. But, as I've said, you've waited 4 million years for this time. And now you do get a little antsy when something doesn't happen in 2 weeks. And I understand that. But be with it. All things now are really going to come to pass in a beautiful way. What's the biggest book right now that's being sold all over the country, all over the world, being talked about on every television station? Hidden Meanings in the Bible.